everyone. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the second annual Tuition and Student Fees Town Hall Forum. We have a great group of panelists here today, and we have a plentiful information about a wide variety of budget, tuition, and student fees related topics. Stay tuned for the live Q&A at the end. But first, let's get started with some introductions. I am Kiera Wink. I am the chair of the Student Fee Committee. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am a Master's of Real Estate Development student, and I am the communication liaison to the SALP group. SALP is Student Activities and Leadership Programs. So I'll pass it off to my vice chair, Dominique.
Hi, everyone. My name's Dom Chen. My pronouns are she, they. I'm a film major here at PSU, and I'm also getting a BA minor, and I help support all of the student media FFAs here on campus. And I'll pass it over to AJ.
Heck yeah. Hi, guys. My name's Adia Johnson. I also go by AJ. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the communication liaison for Student Operative Services, and I'm studying political science public service. And I'll pass it on to Lane.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lainey Sticka. I use she, her, her pronouns, and I'm a business finance major here at PSU. I'm also the communications liaison for student legal services, some of our multicultural resources, as well as students with children. And I will go ahead and pass it to Hakan.
Hello, everyone. I'm Hakan, he, him. I am doing my PhD at the Engineering and Technology Management program. I am the communications liaison to Helen Gordon Child Development Center, ASPSU Children's Center, as well as the Queer Resource Center and Women's Resource Center. Now, next is our amazing Tim.
Thank you, Hakan. First name is Sam, that's easy. The last name is pronounced Knispel. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm a postbac at the School of Business and the College of Urban and Public Affairs. I cultivate relations between the Student Fee Committee and Portland State Athletics, Campus Rec, Smith Memorial Student Union, and the Rec Clubs Council. And next, but certainly not least, is Carter.
Hey everyone, my name is Carter Slago. I am an FCC member. I go by he, they pronouns, and I am currently majoring in art history and business management, and I'm liaison to many groups such as the OBC, student leadership, and so on.
Then let's give a warm welcome to our presidents.
Hello, everyone. Stephen Percy, President, or President Steve here, he, him, his pronouns. So glad to be with you today to talk about some really important topic.
Yes, so happy you're here. And our vice president.
Hi, everyone. My name is James Peterson. I'm a post-baccalaureate studying marketing. I use he, him pronouns.
Thanks for being here. And we have amazing administrative panelists as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dana Tassa, an Associate Vice Provost for Student Health and Wellbeing, and I oversee Student Health and Counseling and Campus Rec.
We have Chuck.
Hi, everybody. My name is Chuck Neffley. I'm the Vice President for Enrollment Management, which is over admissions, admissions, orientation, and financial aid.
As well as Andrea.
Hello, everyone. My name is Andrea Johnson, and I am the Associate Vice President for University Budget and Financial Planning.
And a couple more.
Hi, my name is Amy Mulcairn. I'm the Vice Provost for Academic Budget and Planning.
I'm Megan Looney. I am the Director of Student Financial Services and the Financial Wellness Center.
Hi, Mark Woods. I'm the Associate Dean of the Graduate School.
Good afternoon. I'm Jason Franklin. I'm the AVP for Planning, Construction, and Real Estate, which essentially means I oversee the Fiscal campus here at PSU. I'm also the advisor for the student building fee.
Yes, which is exactly why Jason's here today. So we have a lot of things to cover in this session. First, we'll talk about next year's student incidental and building fee announcement. We'll talk a little bit about what makes up our budget. And then we'll pass it over to Dana to talk about the Shack Health Center fee and the campus rec fee. Afterwards, we'll pass it over to Amy to discuss the new configuration of the online fee. And then we'll bring it to tuition. First, we'll start with the role of the Board of Trustees, then pass it to the AVP of the budget, Andrea Johnson, and she'll talk about our tuition and general budget breakdown. We'll go over some tuition cost drivers, next year's tuition rate, and end it with some amazing student financial services resources with Megan Looney. But first, we have some remarks from our amazing president. Take it away.
Boy, you hit one button, it goes all crazy. Thank you for having me here today. For all the students on here, if you're still working on your midterms, best of wishes on getting that all completed. And for everyone, best wishes on completing the end of the spring term. It's been a long year, a hard slog through all the pandemic, but everything, you've kept up your spirits, keep up a while longer, and all the best of getting through the spring term. And of course, we hope to see a lot of you at summer school. Well, welcome to I want to thank everybody for having me here. I want to acknowledge ASPSU, the Student Fee Committee, and many other people for the hard work in putting together this event today so that we can be transparent and open to you about all of the many things about tuition and fees. And I want to thank all the people across campus who work tirelessly to strike the right balance between keeping PSU affordable and ensuring we have the resources to offer a vibrant academic environment for our students and our faculty. You know, in any kind of tuition, I'll just say, it's always a balance between the two. We know that tuition costs can be a challenge to our students. We very much appreciate that. So we really feel the pressure to try to do our best we can to hold tuition down. At the same time, we face price increases and other things that mean the cost of just doing the same thing with the same people is going up. So we're always trying to balance those two things, and we'll be talking more about that today. I want to thank the Student Fee Committee chaired by Kira Wing and the TRAC, the Tuition Review Advisory Committee led by Andrea Johnson and her team in the Budget Office to undertake this transparency effort and deliver the outcomes to our community that seek to be equitable, affordable, and focus on student success. As you know, the amount of student fees and their use is determined by our students. The past 2 years have delivered a set of most vexing challenges in our 75-year history. The pandemic has made in-person delivery of so many of our services more difficult. At the same time, students are facing more daunting challenges, from basic needs and mental health to academic support. And unfortunately, reductions in student credit hours means reductions in available resources. So we're trying to put all these things together. ASPSU and the Student Fee Committee worked with the administration to find solutions to all these issues. I appreciate the collaboration it reflects and the collegial spirit that we've had that is simply illustrative of who we are at PSU. I'd remind all of us that tuition remains the foundation of our educational budget. While government investments, mostly state government dollars, has grown over the last decade, the state covers less than 35% of our academic program costs. Yet, as we noted in the recommendation I received from the Tuition Review Advisory Committee, paying for college is a real and growing problem for our students. It's not just tuition, we know that, but the overall cost, room and board, housing, transportation, books, and more. And we're working to try to hold those down in ways that we can. This is why I'm grateful to the university, ASPSU, the students, and the state have come together to fund basic needs coordinators on every campus. This is one of our efforts to get students connected to as many services and opportunities that are available to them, some of which are hard to figure them all out and find them. We're delighted to have our new Basic Needs Center in the Smith Center, and we want this to be ways to help our students find more access to the assets to support them in these many areas of the cost of attending the university. We're standing up our Dreamer Center to better serve our DACA students, which builds an increasingly robust number. And we also have an increasingly robust number of multicultural spaces designed to meet the unique needs of students of different groups so that they have a place where they feel welcome and belonging as they come to PSU and then work across the many different parts of the institution as part of their education. That this past year, with the help of state and generous donor, we were able to offer housing stipends to hundreds of students. That is, we gave stipends to people to reduce the cost of living in the dorms. And we're continuing to find all ways we can to see if we can continue that, because we know housing costs are a challenge for students. Over the upcoming year, I look forward to working with ASPSU and our colleagues in student affairs and the foundation to continue to identify solutions to bring down the cost of housing around our campus. I look forward to listening closely today as we continue through the epidemic, the nature of our academic enterprise and the expectations of our students are changing and evolving. I welcome your thoughts and your insights into what it means for PSU, what that means for our larger community, and how we can strike a balance about meeting the needs of our students in the years ahead. Thank you. I look forward to the introductory remarks. I look forward to more conversation. Thank you, everybody.
All right, so we are going to be talking about all the different types of funds that students are paying in order to keep things operational here at PSU. As most of the people, or most of you know, they are separated into different groups. And I'm just going to go over these groups and just as a reminder and go over who these are determined and recommended by and who these are approved and what do they pay for. So the first column is the infamous tuition that we all know. It pays for the academic departments and other university operations, and it is not determined solely by the administration of the university. It is determined by the Tuition Review and Advisory Committee, shortly known as TRAC, which seats different people from different branches in the university, but also students as well. So if you are ever interested in getting not just information, but being a part of this process, you are welcome to submit an application for a seat on TRAC. The next one is the incidental and building fees, which are under the umbrella of mandatory fees. These fees are determined and recommended by the SFC, and they pay for student activities and resources available across campus. There are also some other mandatory fees which have nothing to do with the student fee committee. Mainly they are the rec center fee and the shack fee, and these are determined by the departmental advisory boards. And by the name suggests, they pay for the student health and counseling services and the rec center services available to fee-paying students. Aside from these, we also have non-mandatory fees, which can be grouped under the course or online fees. These are determined by the PSU divisions and departments, and in all their respective lanes, they pay for things like lab supplies, course technology, and special programs, again, for those students who are making use of these services. As with all these, all the money that students are paying, the final approval is given by the PSU's Board of Trustees. However, it is crucial to understand how these fees are determined and recommended by each of these respective committees or departments, because alone the PSU's Board of Trustees are not do not have the bandwidth to go over in detail with all the budgeting and financial analysis of all these resources to make informed decisions. So these informed decisions are provided by these respective committees and departments. So we are going to be going in detail about each of these in the respective sessions, starting with the SFC. So a little bit more detail about the difference between tuition and the mandatory fees, because these are the biggest chunks of money that the students are paying. The tuition is for mostly the academic and administrative functions of the university. Its primary purpose is to provide the education and infrastructure for all the students of Portland State, regardless of if they are in person or online. The university still needs to operate, and the basic infrastructure still needs to be there to provide the education. As mentioned before, it is determined by the university administration with student input, which is the Tuition Revision Advisory Committee. And good news is there's additional state funding available, although unfortunately the historical trend is that state funding is declining year after year. If you look at the general trends. It is also subject to state's approval, which is the Higher Education Coordinating Council's approval, under certain conditions if it goes over a certain threshold. So aside from the tuition, we have mandatory fees, and not all these mandatory fees are, of course, determined by the SFC, as mentioned before. These mandatory fees are mostly non-academic, and they provide the additional amenities to students to support their education during their attendance at PSU. Within those mandatory fees, some of them are determined by the SFC, which are the incidental and building fees, which we call as SFC fees. So these are strictly non-academic as per our guidelines, and their purpose is to provide cultural or physical development opportunities to students. And these are determined and recommended by the efforts of students, which are elected members of the student government. So if any one of you is interested, you are, again, welcome to be a part of student government. And even if you're not, you're always welcome to attend our meetings because they're always open to public and we are looking for student feedback.
So yeah, these are our 33 amazing, fantastic, breathtaking, jaw-dropping fee-funded areas, which, you know, our fees go towards. You can read them all here. And one that we just recently added was the Dreamer Center. I'll highlight Littman and White art galleries, and as well as student legal services. And this is actually my last day working for student legal services right after this meeting. So yeah, and then also we have a lot of student media and resource centers, and you guys should all check them out because our student fees go towards them. So yeah.
So like Hakan previously mentioned, the student incidental fee and student building fee are ultimately recommended and determined by your SFC. The current student incidental fee for the 21-22 school year is $308. And SFC is in charge of recommending and allocating most of the student fees. So the student incidental fee partially or fully funds your fee-funded areas like athletics, resource centers, and ASPSU that Adia just covered. This can also include professional staff and student worker wages. The student building fee for the 21-22 year is $39. The student building fee pays for the student-driven construction projects on campus and for building improvements relating to safety, inclusivity, accessibility, and a few other categories. So moving into this next fiscal year, the year 2023, the student incidental fee will be increasing by $15 to equal $323, and the student building fee will be increasing $6 to equal a total of $45. SFC worked with facilities management and Smith Memorial Union to make a recommendation that we restructure the SBF to address deferred maintenance of our beloved student union. So some of these projects that will be covered include 3 outdated supply fans, 3 leaking roof sections, and 4 elevators.
So where does the money go? The tree map displays what fee-funded areas the $323 incidental fee is allocated to each term. The most goes to 3 childcare facilities on campus. This is an important service since 1 in 4 students at Portland State is a parent. Another large share funds various resource centers on campus, like the Cultural Resource Center. Smaller amounts go to student-run operations like the Graphic Design Center, the Food Pantry, and Fifth Avenue Cinema. The student fee committee reserves some funds for future salary increases and unexpected fee-funded area expenses. So far, we have talked about, oh, I'm sorry.
Are we going on to your next slide, Tim?
Yes.
Or is, okay.
Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Okay. Is it this one? Nope. This is the next slide.
I guess, yeah, I guess it's the comparisons.
That's the next one.
Or
let's go to Carter's. No.
Okay.
Sorry, technical difficulties.
Yeah, hello everyone. Here's a comparison of the incidental fees among different Oregon public universities. However, it is important to note that there is more to this chart as each campus has a different fee structure, methodology, and ways on how fees are charged. For example, as you can see that U of O appears to have a lower incidental fee rate, but doesn't show that they shifted $135 of their incidental fee to their student union fee and created a $140 rec fee. Yeah.
So one thing that you can really see from this chart is that the fees have increased steadily over the last 10 years, regardless of what campus you're on. So we're going to talk a little bit about why that is. So there's a couple of reasons that fee increases. This is why we call it the fee cost drivers. The first one is personnel and wage increases. So every time people get salary increases, anytime they get more benefits, state controlled benefits in retirement are things that we can't really control and that employees deserve, that are out of our control but do raise the cost of the fees. The second thing is strategic investment. Anytime you want to add new positions, new roles, new programs, new events, all of these things require more money, which requires the allocation to go up, which requires the fees that we all pay to go up as well. For example, an example of strategic investment that we did this year was the Dreamer Center. It is a resource center that is dedicated to undocumented students on campus and providing them resources. However, that is a strategic investment that can cause the fee to increase. The next thing is services and supplies inflation. I think we all know about this one a little too much, right? And that is that the cost of living goes up every year, and sometimes it goes up more than we were even expecting. And so repurchasing the same items the next year will be more expensive. So we also have to increase the fee to keep up with those costs. And lastly, enrollment decline. Our fee increase was projected with a 4% decrease in fee paying enrollment. And so when less students are there to pay the fee, it requires the amount that they're paying to increase. So the best way to get lower fees would be to get more people out the school. So tell your friends about Portland State, right? So these four things are big at play when we talk about the reasons why the fee increases. And that's why it hasn't just been us, it's been all over the state. So let's get to the next one.
Yeah, and even while we were dealing with this fee cost drivers over this past year, we still managed to reduce next year's incidental fee funding, which also means the FFA's budgets by over $500,000 before mandatory salary increase costs. And this was made possible through personnel cuts in FFAs like Campus Rec, Smith, Helen Gordon, and SALP. And there was also a large decrease in athletics budget because this was mostly out of our control, because their revenue is based on like a formula that involves attendance to their games. And this year, this SFC also decided to fully defund the Speakers Board, which was part of a 2-year action plan. And these were basically the necessary steps that the SFC had to take to minimize the fee increase caused by the impact of decreasing enrollment. Because if we didn't, the fee could have increased by over $25. So, yeah.
And yeah, this is our website. You should all check it out. You can learn more here. You could reach our agendas, our meetings, and just see what we're up to. And also you can join us as well. So yeah, check it out. Sorry, I forgot this is also my slide. Yeah, so this is where your student fees are going towards. Over 500 jobs and more counting, this is just thus far. And then over 100 professional staff jobs, over 500 ELSA awards, that's for student leaders, and then just 63 capital projects paid through the student building fee. And that's the total.
So far, we talked about the student incidental and building fees and where those dollars are spent. Dana Tassin, Director of Student Health and Counseling, or SHAC, and Interim Director for Campus Rec, will talk about the health services and rec center fees.
Hi, everyone. Dana Tassin here, he, him pronouns. Anyone who has 5 or more credits pays the health services fee. This allows you to use SHAC services, which include all of our clinical services like medical services, seeing a doctor, seeing a counselor, seeing a dentist. Those services are also available online with telemedicine and teletherapy for medical services and counseling services. So even if you are mostly remote, you still have access to those kinds of clinical services. We also do a lot to promote the health and well-being on campus through our health peer educators with our Wellness and Health Action Team, and participation in lots of campus health-related committees like the CARE team, the Incident Management team, the Bias Review team, and so on. We also serve a role in providing guidance and serving as a resource to campus during medical emergencies and pandemics, such as with the recent pandemic that we've just all experienced over the last 2 years. And one important thing for everyone to keep in mind is that no matter what your insurance is, you can come and use SHAC if you've paid the health fee. So it doesn't matter what your insurance is, you can come to see SHAC, and there is no office visit fee, unlike at some of our other institutions. Moving on to the rec center fee, in 2004, students voted on this fee to pay for a construction of a rec center, and providing that the fee also go to pay for the debt on that and the long-term maintenance of the rec center. If you haven't visited the rec center, please do so. It's up and running and is fully open. It provides all sorts of inclusive recreation and programming. And we're also one of the largest student employers on campus. One note is that the health services fee, as you can see, did go up this year. That's entirely due to medical inflation and rising costs of supplies and labor.
So I wanted to speak to some of the upcoming changes to the online fee. Over the last year, the Office of Academic Innovation, in partnership with many stakeholders across campus, including members of the Student Fee Committee, has been reviewing the online course fee structure. And as a result of this work, this next year, we will reduce the fee from $35 to $22 per credit hour. Additionally, in the fall, the online courses will now be designated in the schedule with 2 different online courses. This is to more clearly indicate whether this course requires in-person scheduled meetings or no scheduled meetings. And so this the new online fee will apply to both of these modalities, and this will enable the student to clearly understand the time of scheduling expectations if they will be scheduled meetings. This is also recognized as an interim step towards a longer term solution. The review committee identified that the fee needed to be equitable, affordable, comprehensible, and sustainable. And so this initial step allows the lowering of the fee with over the next year or so, exploring a new mandatory fee or tuition adjustment that would be paid more equally among all students. So if we move to the next slide, we can look to see how that $22 breaks down and how it's covered in costs. About 22% it supports resource and support for students learning and navigating higher education. Examples of these costs are some of the costs in the Learning Center, some advising costs, Transfer Resource Center, and Office of Student Success. The largest portion of 62% supports accessible and engaged online courses and digital experience instructors. So this focuses on the quality of online course design, as well as faculty training in digital tools and online teaching pedagogies. And 16% supports digital tools and platforms for learning online. Examples of this include Zoom, DTL, which is actually Canvas now, sorry, outdated, Turnitin, Protocol, and others. And so that's how the online fee will be spent in the future for this $22.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about fees. We talked about the mandatory fees, we talked about the non-mandatory fees, we talked about the SFC controlled fees, but now we're talking about tuition, everyone's favorite, right? So tuition is determined and recommended by the Tuition Review and Advisory Committee, which we'll talk a little bit about later, and approved by the Board of Trustees. So let's go talk about a little bit about the Board of Trustees. So the Board of Trustees are actually volunteer members. They are appointed by the Governor of Oregon, and they're just responsible for the governance of the university. And they're all about establishing the mission and the strategic plan of the university. They approve the university budget and our fees. We presented in front of the Board of Trustees and their Finance and Administration Committee and got extremely positive feedback as well. And they are very helpful. And actually at our last tuition town hall, we did have a couple Board of Trustees members, but unfortunately they were unable to make it today. But yes, this is all overseen by the Board of Trustees, and they have the best interests of current and future PSU students, faculty, and staff in all of their decision making. So let's go to the next slide.
The Tuition Review Advisory Committee, or TRAC, is comprised of students, faculty, and supporting staff. Student representatives and any interested or concerned students have the opportunity to meet with representatives of the university administration and participate in the tuition and fee setting process. Members learn about how the university develops its budget, from anticipated enrollment, revenues, and expenses. They're exposed to how the state allocates funds for higher education. After an extensive education and many opportunities for members to comment, the committee submits a report, which is about 20 pages, to the university president and the university's Board of Trustees. It includes an appendix for individual comments. I took advantage of that with a letter to the board from the perspective of someone who serves on the Student Fee Committee and the Tuition Review Advisory Committee. Next slide, please. The Tuition Review Advisory Committee met 10 times from late November last year through March of this year. We learned that the university budget process is complex. Those who presented it to us paused many times for questions and allowed time for it all to sink in. There's a lot to get in your head. The complexity demonstrates the need for committee members to commit themselves to attend all meetings and try to understand what's presented. The more they understand, the more critical input they can offer. To facilitate understanding, the university was obligated to meet deadlines for delivering necessary information to the committee so it can provide important feedback. When the Vice President of Finance Administration presents the report to the university president and Board of Trustees, TRAC members can express their support for or opposition to the recommendation. ASPSU has the same opportunity. This includes offering alternative proposals. Andrea Johnson is with the University Budget Office. Her explanations were invaluable to the committee for understanding difficult material. She'll talk some about of the budget basics we learned about and more. Andrea, you now have the thunder.
Thank you. So one of the things that, as Tim mentioned, is that our operating budget and our budget process is extremely complicated. And while TRAC gets the really deep dive, I'm going to show you a little bit of what they learned. So here is our operating budget flow. You'll notice that we have multiple sections, and some of them are kind of grayed out or lighter colored because I did want to show them to you, but I don't want to focus on them at this point. What you see here is all the moving parts, all those arrows, that complication, but I want to turn your focus to our education and general fund, and in particular, the general fund, because that is where your tuition and the state support that we get from Oregon goes into. So so tuition comes in, state support comes in, and that creates an allocation that then we push out to the different units on campus, the different divisions, such as academic affairs, which houses all of the schools and colleges that teach you, finance and administration that does some of that back end work and who I work for, and then we spend those dollars doing the things that support our students and support the university. So as you can see, again, lots of different arrows, things moving all over the place. And this is a very simplified version of what our budget looks like, a very simplified version of the budget flow. So I'm going to go ahead and go on to the next slide, please. All right, so at this point in time, I'm giving you information on our current fiscal year 22 general fund budget because we are actually in the throes of creating our fiscal year 23 or next year's budget. So I don't have these numbers quite yet for next year, but I did want to show you of your tuition and of the tuition you paid in our state support that the majority of those dollars go to academic affairs. And again, academic affairs is where your schools and colleges, that's where the teaching occurs in academic affairs. That's where the library is. That's where advising is. So we're thinking about those types of expenses sit there, and as such, the largest amount should be in academic affairs. The next largest division is finance and administration, and finance and administration has things like accounting, human resources, campus public safety, student financial services, which is in fact a student facing service, as well as my office and many other things, and facilities and many other things that we do across the campus to make a vibrant campus, vibrant university. The third biggest would be our general university obligations, and those are things that we pay for the university overall. So that would be some debt on buildings, that's our utilities, that is our insurance for the actual university. So we have lots of lots of expenses that relate to the entire university in general, and that falls into that category. One of the things that I would also like to point out is a lot of folks think or are under the impression that a large amount of your tuition goes to support athletics. As you can actually see on this graph and in the table, that actually 1% of the tuition and state support goes to support athletics. So about $2.3 million, $2.4 million of the $313 million that we receive in our general fund is going towards athletics. So a very, very small amount. I always like to point that out there. Next slide, please. So what do we spend that stuff on? Well, the majority of our expenses are on our people. So we have our salaries and wages at 54%, and our OPE. So that's our OPE is going to be those benefits that we pay, health insurance, taxes, retirement, etc. 29%. So making up a large amount, the majority, 83% of the total general fund expenditures, again, on people. The other 17% falls into services and supplies. Services and supplies is not just paper. It is that debt that we're paying on buildings. It is our utilities. It is travel if we haven't had a lot of travel recently, but it's all of those kind of rolled into one category. The other way that we could look at what we're spending our dollars on are by our NACUBO cost categories. And NACUBO stands for the National Association of College and University Business Officers. And that's a association that works with universities across the nation. They're community colleges, big universities, privates, publics, all universities, and they provide us some guidance on how we should categorize our expenditures. And so they've given us these categories, and as you can see in our category, instruction and departmental research, 51% of our general fund expenditure budget goes towards that instruction and departmental research. The next largest category being institutional management and support, and that's an interesting category because some things actually can go in there. In particular, I'm going to give you an example. OIT or information technology falls under institutional management and support. However, it depends on what university you look at. It may also fall under academic support because information technology also supports academic support. Or our academic mission. They're making sure that we're paying for those things, that technology that you need to attend your classes and to do your work. So again, the third largest category is academic support, and those are those things like the library, like excuse me, like your counselors. They fall into that category there. And again, as I mentioned before, while there are some guidelines by NACUBO, some things are there are some gray areas, and universities do make decisions based on how they operate. And so when you're comparing one university to a next, you have to actually consider those slight differences. Next slide, please. All right, so here's what you probably want to know. What's costing us so much? Why is tuition going up? What are we paying for with a tuition increase? So the first and largest categories is we are anticipating $10.5 million in personnel increases over the next year. I think I will say that this is an estimate. These numbers that I'm sharing with you are estimates. They could change. As we know, inflation is extremely high. It's one of those things that has gone up as we over what we normally would see. And so that along with other factors may influence these numbers. So again, we want to make sure our employees, we have unionized employees. We want to make sure that we are following our contracts. We also have minimum wage increases that we have to follow. And of course, the state funds our retirement, and our health benefits are also through the state as well. So those are a couple of things, the retirement and the health benefits, those are a couple of things where we don't get to set the cost. What we do is we just pay what we're told to pay. Strategic investments. So we don't have any additional recurring costs related to strategic investments for fiscal year 23. One of the things that we do have in our recurring budget is $200,000 set aside for student-led student success initiatives. In the fall, I believe a group of students, I believe they are appointed by ASPSU, gets together and meets and talks about how they think that $200,000 would best serve you as students. So that is again available for you for next year. So I'm excited about that and excited to see what those dollars will be spent on in the coming years. For the last couple of years, it's been mostly in emergency support, and I believe this year there were some funds that were put aside to help students that are previously incarcerated students make their way through the university. Last but not least, about $1.7 million in increase in inflation related to our services and supplies. I don't know about you, but my insurance, my car insurance, my homeowner's insurance, all my insurance rates have just skyrocketed in the last year. And the university is like that as well. So we pay insurance. We can expect that insurance to go on up, just like like we're experiencing in our own budgets. So total cost drivers that are estimated at this point in time, about 4% or $12.3 million above our current general fund budget. Next slide, please. Okay, so what does that mean for tuition? Well, that means that we are we have actually requested and recommended to the president, and it has been approved by the full board of trustees, a $7 increase per credit hour for our tuition rates. And as you'll notice, the percent change is different for each group. However, the dollar increase is the same. And this is something that we instituted a couple of years ago when we talked about having dollar parity for our students. When we increased tuition, if we increased everybody by 3.6%, our non-resident and our graduate students would be paying a lot more than our resident undergraduate students. So we wanted to say, hey, if we're going to increase tuition, let's make sure that the dollar impact is the same for everyone. You've heard earlier where we talked about those other mandatory fee increases. Just to recap, a $6 increase to the student building fee, a $15 increase to the incidental fee, a $14 increase to the health service fee and no increase to the rec center fee at all. So that's what was presented to the Board of Trustees, recommended through track up to the president and then to the Board of Trustees, and it has been approved. Next slide, please. Always get asked, well, what does that mean for me as a student? How much more am I going to have to pay? What does that look like? And so we do this comparison here that has many years out, but I want to point you to the numbers on the right-hand side of the table. So as you can see, each quarter for undergraduate students, you can expect to pay about $140 more each term, or $420 for the academic year if you're an undergraduate student. And if you're a graduate student and you're taking 12 credits, you can expect to pay $119 more per quarter, or $357 per year. And that is, again, based on 15 credits if you're an undergraduate, 12 credits if you're a graduate. Obviously, the numbers change if you take less credits or if you take more. Next slide, please. All right. So, excuse me, one of the questions that we get asked a lot are what's happening at other Oregon public universities. And so Derek Davis, who supports the SFC, was kind enough to go and find a lot of information for us. It's kind of hard. Sometimes you have to dig to find out what's happening at other universities. But as you can see, Portland State is across the top. What we proposed and was approved is across the top. And as you can see, we are everybody's about the same. Most folks are under a 5% increase in their undergraduate resident. With the exception of the Oregon Institute of Technology. And what you'll also see is sometimes actually University of Oregon is interesting. They have a tuition guarantee program. And so continuing students don't pay anymore, but new students will pay more. It's an interesting program. We'll watch it. It was just instituted a couple of years ago, and we'll watch and pay attention to what's going on at University of Oregon and think about this and how it might pertain to PSU in the future as well. So you can see we're kind of right on par with the folks up and down, or excuse me, south of us. Next slide, please. All right. So the other thing that people often wonder is, well, how does my tuition compare to other universities that are similar to PSU in addition to the Oregon Public Universities? So Eric Lorenzo in our office every year goes out and gets the tuition and mandatory fees from a set of urban schools as well as the Oregon Public Universities. And he puts together these really nice charts that show where we sit in comparison. And as you can see, for our resident undergraduate tuition, we're kind of right smack in the middle there. We're the third lowest in Oregon, just slightly above Western Oregon University. But again, right smack dab in the middle of everybody. For our non-residents, we're a little bit, for our non-resident undergraduate, we're a little bit higher. So that, we watch that very, very closely to make sure that we are not discouraging folks that are not residents of Oregon to come to PSU, because we do encourage people from all over the world to enjoy what we have to offer at Portland State. Next slide, please. We do the same thing for our graduate tuition and fees. And as you can see, for our resident graduate tuition, we are a bit on the higher end. We're right up there, as is what's interesting, as is most of the universities in Oregon. But for our non-resident graduate students, we're on the lower end. So these are factors that we think about as we're considering, well, if we're going to do a tuition increase, how is it going to impact our students, and how is it going to impact, how does it fit in with what other universities are charging? And next slide. And I think I'm turning it over to Tim to talk to wrap us up.
Yes, thank you, Andrea. Anything related to the Tuition Review Advisory Committee is found on its website. And on the slide here, we have a hyperlink. And it's also, Derek has also provided it here in the chat. If also, you can always go on the PSU website and just do a search for TRAC, T-R-A-C, and you'll find something. The university's desire is to get more students to get on track next year with representation from all the colleges and schools. Committee members can expect to learn more about the costs that drive tuition, something that Andrea just talked to us about. The Tuition Review Advisory Committee meets again next fall. Students who want a voice in what they pay for tuition can contact ASPSU, get nominated from their college or school, or contact the university budget office. Students don't need to be ASPSU members to join, although we'd love to have you join us. There's also no limit to the number of students who can participate. The more students there are, the more student voices are heard. I hand the thunder back to Kiara.
So if you wanted to take some of this information with you, we made a handy little guide. It's a pamphlet made by one of our very own, and it has those great charts that you saw about the undergraduate, resident, and non-resident comparisons. It has the Oregon Public University comparisons. It has student financial resources, the fee-funded areas, and the current fee amounts, everything you could imagine and want in a pamphlet. And we have it here for you. So we'll drop that in the chat right now. And then we will also be sending this out in an email. We'll send an exit survey out with this recording, with the slideshow, and with this pamphlet, not only to just anyone who's been in attendance, but to all students, because we think this is extremely important. And like President Percy says, we really want to value transparency within this process. So let's go to our next slide.
Hi, I am Megan Looney. I'm the Director of Student Financial Services, and I want to thank you, ASPSU and the Student Fee Committee, for making sure that we have this and talk about tuition and fees. I think it's a really important topic to make sure that it's as transparent to the student population as possible. So Student Financial Services is made up of the Financial Wellness Center, student accounts, our cashier's office, as well as ID services. So all of our areas are front facing. We interact with students all the time. In terms of the tuition and fees, we have the awesome job of controlling the tuition and fee table that tries to make sure that all the students are charged the right fees based upon how they're admitted, what programs they're in, whether they're grad or undergrad. It's a pretty awesome role to try and have to get right. And most of the time, I think we succeed pretty successfully. So I'm pretty proud of that. We also send out either by email or by physical mail billing statements on a monthly basis to any student that has an outstanding balance with the university. We also support the PSU payment plan that allows students and their families to divide up the cost of their tuition over the term and make that as hopefully as easily affordable and accessible as it can be for them. We also answer questions regarding tuition and fees, anything that we can provide to make it more transparent to people. We do our best to provide that information. To me, it's really important, and we always want everyone to understand the charges that they're seeing. Next slide, please. So one of the things I would say we focus on, especially in the Financial Wellness Center, is student support regarding financial decisions and helping students understand their obligations to the university as well as to their other creditors. We work through any financial choices that they are expecting either in their educational endeavors and how that's going to impact them down the road, or if they want to just look at general working budget and things of that nature. We will certainly help any student work and create those things for themselves. If you have a chance, please visit our website, which I think they put up there in the chat. We have tons of financial resources on there. We partner with EverFi to provide financial education, and they're short, very digestible videos that people can use. Again, creating a budget if you need to, working on building credit. When you're preparing to leave and graduate with your degree, awesome job, getting ready to repay those student loans. Because those are always, I think, sort of like an overarching hardship that students start to worry about. So, again, I encourage anybody, if you need support in any way from our office and understanding what's going on in your student account, please feel free to come by to any of our front-facing counters, the Financial Wellness Center, and we are glad to help you figure those things out.
Thank you, Megan. All right, folks, thank you so much. That is the end of our slides. And now we are getting into this live Q&A portion of the event. So please, this is the chance to drop all your questions in the chat, or actually in the Q&A section of the Zoom. So basically at the very bottom, it should say Q&A. You should be able to click on it and type in a question. Right now, we'll be going off of a couple of questions that we got from previous town halls, and then we'll switch to the live Q&A. This will be moderated by our Vice President James and the Student Government and Sorority and Fraternity Advisor, Madeline. So yes, let's get to that.
Wonderful. We'll begin with the first question. Why do students have to pay for fees in service, or have to pay fees for services they might never use?
Okay, so let me answer this question. It is actually a very big and complicated question, and as a student myself, I also understand where it is coming from. At first, it was very hard for me to wrap my head around as well. However, the short answer is that any student who needs this can access these services. The basic principle is that students are not paying for the actual access to the services, but for the privilege and opportunity to be able to access these services for those who can. It is the same basic principle as taxes. So although some students don't use childcare or don't enjoy athletics or don't go to rec center even more or don't need legal services, these services are still available for students if needed to ensure their education is not hindered. That also provides the opportunity for the other students who are not making use of these services, because that enables other students to be a part of the Portland State community and pay tuition and be successful in their lives, which again have a positive impact on enrollment, which we have seen as the enrollment declines, how things can go south very easily. So with these services being available to all the students, that actually even for the students who are not making use of these services, these are available as an infrastructure and also provide opportunities as the students who are making use of these services are paying tuition and become part of PSU community. So the students actually pay for the opportunity regardless of their choice to utilize them.
Yes. Thank you, Akan, for that great answer.
Of course.
Move on to the second one. Why do I have to pay the building fee if I'm not on campus?
So this ties into a little bit of what Hakan had just talked about. So basically, we pay these fees as a privilege to use these services. And also the building fee, although it does seem like it pays for buildings, it actually pays for a lot of capital projects and construction projects. For example, a lot of work in the Native American Student Center, a lot of work at Helen Gordon, the Walk of Heroines, if you all have ever been down there by Hoffman Hall. It's also been really helpful to pay for a lot of small projects that we do on campus, including like tactile map creation, foot washing stations, creating like upgrades to securities of different areas on campus. So it's a really helpful fee for a lot of the small projects that we have going on, as well as the larger capital projects that we have going on. And we definitely wouldn't have been able to fix our student union and give it the upgrades that it needed without the student building fee. Also, the student building fee Also, there are tons of buildings open on campus right now that you should definitely, if you haven't been on campus yet, you should definitely go. It's getting more and more lively by the second. You should definitely check out the access hours for these buildings. You do need your ID to enter, but Kramer Hall, Carl Miller Center, FMH, SMSU, the library, as well as the new Van Port building is also open from 8 to 5 too. So definitely feel free to stop by that one as well. There's a student lounge on the second floor. Yeah, let's go next step.
Alrighty, this one's me here, looks like. So our first question here was also kind of tying into some of the previous pieces, but how can students get involved with the programs they pay for? So I think this kind of ties into the prior piece too of, you know, recognizing that we have students that are taking classes all online or might be doing more hybrid options, looking at ways to just reduce their on-campus time if they commute, different things like that. But I think there's still a variety of programs under that fee-funded area umbrella, as well as other programs funded through tuition that are offering now more online and hybrid options. So a lot of things, there's a lot more flexibility. There's therapy from SHAC that can be done online. There's resources in terms of confidential advocacy that offer online appointments. It's not referenced on here, but I know even Financial Wellness Center has online appointments, as well as the Learning Center, and tutoring services and things all have online options. WRC and VRC also have held recently a lot more online or hybrid events. And there's even things through the Rec Center in terms of pre-recorded videos, as well as live online events and classes that you can attend. So I will link in the chat after this. There's we have a FFA contact list to get in contact to you if you'd like to kind of talk to these people individually and see, you know, different resources they have. But also a lot of the FFA's websites have, you know, tabs or different things that reference more specifically their online resources. I know Rec Center has something like this, and I think more areas are kind of incorporating this in overall to their program mission as fee-funded areas to better serve more of a variety of students. Yeah, and our next one here, so the question here is, can you give us an update on the athletics budget and resources? And for this one, I'll be passing this off to President Percy here.
Everybody, thank you. I'm just glad to give you an update on that. You may recall that last year and moving to this year, I had an athletics futures committee which looked at athletics and a variety of different options for moving forward. They raised some important questions. We're interested in the financial sustainability of athletics as we are of programs across the campus. And I'm committed to do some strategic planning. We'll look at budget and impact and the health and well-being of our student athletes. And we will be developing a strategic plan moving forward. But before we wanted to do that, we wanted to hire a new athletic director. So I hope you'll all join me in welcoming Mr. John Johnson, who has joined us this week as our new athletics director. He's just on campus. He has a wealth of experience in many other universities. I feel very excited that we have someone who has had many years of experience in different types of institutions in higher education, who I think brings a wealth of knowledge that will not only be working to support and strengthen our athletics program, but also look at a long-term budget, the financial sustainability for that program.
And this next question is also going to be for you as well, President Percy. So can you update us on campus efforts to reach greater financial sustainability over the next 2 or 3 years?
Sure. I like to take occasions when I can to talk to people about this, because we do want to be transparent. I'll try not to go too deep into this, but I'll give you an overview, and there's other information we can direct you to if you'd like more information. The challenge that PSU has faced is that over the past 10 years, like other institutions, our enrollments have declined generally over that 10-year period. And one of the challenges you have is when you have a period like we did prior to that, when we enrolled a lot of people, when those people graduate, then you suddenly, if you're not replacing at the same rate, then you begin to have a decline. So we had a decline over the last 10 years, and that decline in enrollment leads to less tuition revenue. And for many years, the increases in state budget dollars helped us to kind of compensate for that reduction in the tuition revenue coming in to get a balanced budget. But in the last year or two, that decline has hit in such a way cumulatively that it means that our budget is out of balance a bit. We are working with our Board of Trustees. We're actually doing a little deficit spending this year. What that means is we're using some reserves we had, like in a savings account, to the tune of around $7 or $8 million this year to balance our budget. So for the past 2 or 3 years, we've recognized this issue, and we're doing many different things to try to turn around our financial situation so we're not facing cuts all the time. I know everyone would like that. I just want to review a few of those. One is we're working very with great energy and commitment and effect and success in student recruitment under Vice President Chuck Neffley, who's with us today, and the wonderful team in enrollment management. They have employed a lot of strategies and outreach. And as you probably know, this year, our incoming first-year undergraduate students at PSU increased over 10%. Our transfer students are up a bit, which is a good sign to go up because the community college enrollments have been down in the last 2 or 3 years, partly in result of the pandemic. So we were up. So we're working the best we can to continue to invite people to come to this wonderful campus of Portland State University. And we're working every possible strategy and communication and outreach methodology to increase enrollment in our institution. And I'm very proud that our institution has become increasingly becoming more diverse, and which means we're meeting the needs of a growingly diverse population in the greater Portland area. So we're making enrollment management is one thing we're doing. Second of all, we're doing a major assessment of our academic programs with an eye to trying to see which of the programs that may need fewer resources, which are the ones that are growing that need more resources, so that we can redirect resources to programs that are growing, where students want to enroll and be able to meet the need for students in growth areas. So we're readjusting through an academic program review. We're also doing a review of our administrative support and our support services overall, the administrative side of the house, as well as the academic side of the house. We've hired an outside consultant to give us some perspective and ideas on how our administrative systems can be more efficient, work more quickly, and help us to move forward more efficiently in our area. I want you to know that with the approval of the Board of Trustees, as president, I allocated some money from our reserve pool in what we're calling a strategic investment fund. We're investing $14 million over 2 to 3 years, and we're using those funds to, again, speed up hiring of faculty in areas where there's growth. We are doing some program development in online programs. We're investing in our faculty to have the resources to be very effective online instructors. We're investing in our faculty to be teaching our new racial and ethnic studies requirement that's just restarting up next year officially. So we're investing in our faculty, we're investing in undergraduate research, we're investing in programs to reach out to students who were here at Portland State, did not graduate, but are not very far from graduation. We're going to support them coming back to be successful and to complete their degree. So we're doing a lot of things and investment things as well. So we're doing a variety of different strategies, trying to align our resources, including our expenditures and our revenues, to strengthen our financial status, and also to better arrange us for the future of higher education, which you all know is changing. There's more on my website on financial sustainability, but those are some of the highlights of things we're doing to try to generate a better financial situation. And we're certainly not using huge tuition increases to achieve that. Thank you.
All righty. And our next question here is, won't tuition and fees increases create barriers for low-income students or students struggling? And this one, Chuck Neffley.
Thank you, Madeline. Yes, we think that's possible, but we've done what we can to mitigate that for at least a whole lot of the students. Many people in this meeting might know that our 2 premier financial aid programs for undergraduate students are 4 years free and transfers finish free. Those are targeted at our neediest, our lowest income students who have Pell Grant eligibility. And approximately, well, almost not approximately, exactly, 43% of in-state students at Portland State are in one of those two programs. And if you know anything about them, the programs are set up so that as any mandatory fee goes up, and tuition is one of those mandatory fees, as tuition goes up and mandatory fees go up, we make a commitment to the student to cover that increase with either increases in federal, state, or university resources. So it's designed so that no student in those programs, those 43% of the students in those programs have to pay that additional $7 per credit hour. So that's by design, and that's not to suggest that students still won't struggle. We know that there are costs in addition to students experience beyond tuition and fee, but as far as those fees, it's something we have a little control over, and that's how we address it for our neediest students.
Great answer. Thank you.
All right, so our next question here we have, and this kind of plays into some of our earlier questions, but hopefully kind of Megan can expand on this a little bit. Can online or distance students opt out of fees for resources that they can't or don't use?
So for most of the fees, it's unfortunately a no. If they are mandatory fees, they are exactly that, mandatory. Every student has to pay them. The only fee that I think we assess that students can, with proof, waive is the health insurance fee that we charge to everyone. And you know, if you opt out in fall, it's good for the rest of the academic year, and then you don't have to opt out again until the next fall. But I think one of the things that I think the pandemic has presented us is an opportunity to get more comfortable with online and presenting services online. And so I think as a university as a whole, we've done a pretty good job of trying to look for creative ways to do stuff online. And so I think, as Dana referenced earlier, they've got telemedicine in SHAC. And I think Campus Rec has been offering online courses. So I think most areas have gotten pretty creative on how to try and present people options for attending even virtually things that they are paying for, which I think is a great benefit to the student. And hopefully we keep that up.
Yes. Well, that's all the questions that we had before. We're going to give it one more chance to give people an opportunity to submit a live question. I know we have a couple folks still here with us. If there's any question that you have, this is such an amazing opportunity to ask to such a group of people. There's a lot of heavy hitters in this group that have a wealth of knowledge and information over a wide variety of topics. So if there is anything that you are interested in, this is the chance to ask them, to ask it right now. Budget related, okay, budget related. Okay, we'll give it a little bit more. We'll give it like a couple more, a minute. But thank you everyone for joining us. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you learned a lot from this PowerPoint. Like I said earlier, we will be sending out an email to all PSU students with the link to this recording, to this presentation, as well as the pamphlet that was shown earlier. Thank you to our amazing panelists for coming in today. I do apologize for the low turnout. We did find out that I guess the link in the virtual Viking was not working, so that could have been another issue. So a lot of people probably were trying to access and it just wasn't able to access. So hopefully people will still be able to engage with all the information that we've shared through their email and through the recording and slideshow. But I really appreciate everyone for spending your Friday, spending your time here. And yes, hopefully we'll see you at next year's, right? Maybe next year's will be in person and maybe we'll get a little bit more people. So fingers crossed. Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate you here today. Have a great Friday.